Good morning, afternooning, even everyone. Today, I want to talk about one of the most underestimated forces in your personal growth journey: focusing on yourself. In a world that constantly demands our attention, that tells us to compare, to compete, to conform, many of us forget the one person who truly needs our energy the most: ourselves. We grow up taught to seek validation from others. We chase likes, applause, approval, even love from people who might not even know our worth. We spread ourselves thin, trying to please, trying to fit in, trying to meet expectations that were never ours to begin with. Focusing on yourself is not selfish. It is self-care. This is a concept that many people struggle with because we are conditioned to believe that putting ourselves first somehow means we are neglecting others or being egotistical. But in truth, self-focus is one of the most compassionate and responsible things you can do, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. When you take the time to understand your needs, honor your emotions, and prioritize your well-being, you are setting a foundation that allows you to show up in the world with more clarity, strength, and integrity. You cannot pour into others if your own cup is empty. If you're constantly neglecting your mental health, sacrificing your time, or compromising your boundaries to please others, you'll eventually burn out. And when you're depleted, stressed, or emotionally unstable, your relationships suffer, your work suffers, and your health declines. Taking care of yourself is not an act of selfishness. It's an act of sustainability. It's how you ensure you have the energy to give, and the wisdom to lead, and the capacity to love fully. When you focus on yourself, you begin to treat yourself with the same kindness, patience, and understanding that you often reserve only for others. You start listening to your body, your intuition, your dreams. You create space for healing, growth, and self-respect. And as you do that, the world around you begins to respond differently. Because how you treat yourself sets the tone for how others will treat you. So instead of guilt, choose grace. Instead of sacrifice, choose balance. Understand that by focusing on yourself, you are actually becoming a stronger, healthier, more grounded version of yourself. Someone who is better equipped to contribute meaningfully to the lives of others. Energy is limited. Invest it wisely. Every day, we wake up with a certain amount of mental, emotional, and physical energy. It's like a battery, and how we choose to spend it determines the quality of our day, our progress, and ultimately our life. Yet so many people waste their precious energy on things that don't serve them. Arguing with others, overthinking situations, seeking validation, scrolling endlessly through social media, or trying to control what they cannot change. All of this drains your internal power and leaves you feeling exhausted, frustrated, and directionless. What if you use that same energy to work on yourself? What if you directed it toward your growth, your goals, your healing, your vision? That shift alone can change everything. It's not about doing more. It's about doing what matters. Instead of reacting to every opinion or distraction, choose to respond only to what aligns with your purpose. Instead of constantly giving away your attention to other people's lives, focus on building your own. When you start treating your energy like currency, you become more mindful of where and who you spend it on. You stop entertaining drama. You stop chasing empty validation. You stop showing up for people who never show up for you. You start filtering your commitments and guarding your peace. That's how you take back control. Because the truth is, energy is more valuable than time. While time continues regardless of what we do, your energy determines the quality of what you do within that time. When you use it wisely, life becomes more intentional. You get better results with less stress. You feel lighter, more focused, more in tune with yourself. It's not about being busy. It's about being aligned. And alignment only happens when your energy is going in the right direction, inward, toward your growth, your balance, your truth. Self-focus helps silence the noise. In the modern world, we are constantly bombarded with information, news updates, social media feeds, opinions from friends and family, expectations from society, and the ever-present pressure to do more, be more, and achieve faster. This constant influx of voices can drown out the most important voice of all, your own. The noise around us can create confusion, anxiety, and self-doubt. it can cause you to second-guess your path, compare yourself to others, and lose sight of what truly matters to you. That's why focusing on yourself is not just helpful, it's essential. When you intentionally pull your attention inward, you begin to tune out the external static and reconnect with your inner clarity. You begin to hear your own thoughts more clearly. You become more aware of what feels right, what feels wrong, and what you truly desire, not what you've been told to want. Focusing on yourself is like stepping into a quiet room after standing in a chaotic crowd. You can breathe again. You can think clearly. You can feel your own rhythm, your own heartbeat, your own truth. And in that silence, you begin to understand what you've been ignoring or pushing aside. You recognize which thoughts are yours and which have been implanted by others. You start to notice what actually brings you peace, not what just looks good on the outside. You stop reacting to the world's noise and start responding to your own needs. It's in this quiet focus that real transformation begins. You're no longer a slave to trends, gossip, or societal timelines. You don't panic when others seem ahead of you. You don't feel the need to prove anything to anyone. You start living by your own rhythm. You realize that you don't have to be everywhere, know everything, or be everything to everyone. You just need to be true to yourself. And that kind of peace, that kind of centeredness, only comes when you stop letting the world dictate your direction and start allowing your inner compass to guide you. Comparison is the enemy of progress. It's one of the most silent yet destructive habits we fall into, often without even realizing it. We scroll through social media, observe other people's lives, careers, relationships, or appearances, and we begin to measure ourselves against them. Suddenly, our own achievements feel small. Our pace feels slow. Our confidence starts to shake. But here's the truth: comparison distorts your vision. It takes your eyes off your own journey and forces you to run a race that was never meant for you. Every time you compare yourself to someone else, you rob yourself of the focus and energy that could be used to improve your own life. You begin to chase someone else's version of success, rather than defining and pursuing your own. The reality is, you are not supposed to be like anyone else. Your timeline is different. Your struggles are different. Your strengths, your lessons, your growth, all of it is uniquely yours. No one else has lived your life, felt your pain, or dreamed your dreams. So why compare your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 20? It's not fair to you. It creates insecurity, doubt, and a false belief that you're behind, when in truth, you may be exactly where you're supposed to be. When you compare, a crowd ever will, you're not only wasting time, you're also disconnecting from your purpose. You become reactive instead of proactive. You start to live from a place of lack instead of gratitude. You become blind to your own potential, constantly distracted by the illusion of someone else's life. And most of what we compare ourselves to is just that, an illusion. People show their highlights, not their hardships. Their victories, not their battles. Focusing on their surface makes you forget your own depth. To make real progress, you must turn your attention inward. Focus on your growth, your goals, and your journey. Every moment you spend comparing is a moment you lose building. Your self-worth should never depend on being better than others. It should come from being better than the person you were yesterday. Let others inspire you, but don't let them define you. Clarity comes from within, not from others. In life, we often look outside ourselves for answers, seeking advice, approval, direction, and validation from the people around us. We ask others what they think we should do, how we should act, who we should be. While guidance can sometimes be helpful, relying too much on external opinions can leave us feeling more confused than clear. That's because true clarity, the kind that aligns with your purpose and values, doesn't come from noise, trends, or outside influence. It is born from self-awareness, reflection, and quiet introspection. It comes when you pause, step back from the world, and ask yourself the deeper questions: what do I want? What fulfills me? What kind of life do I want to create? You won't find those answers in someone else's story. You won't find them in a list of pros and cons written by someone who doesn't live in your shoes. You won't find them in the praise or criticism of others. You find them when you start paying attention to what feels authentic to you. That inner clarity is a compass, but it only begins to work when you stop depending on outside maps. When you focus on yourself, you begin to discover what you actually believe, not what you've been told to believe. You start understanding the difference between what feels right for you and what just looks good to others. You start noticing the patterns in your behavior, the triggers in your emotions, the callings in your soul. This self-knowledge is powerful because it gives you direction. It helps you make decisions based not on fear, pressure, or obligation, but on alignment. And when you act from a place of alignment, you begin to experience less regret, less confusion, and more peace. Clarity is not always loud. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it shows up in the stillness when you're alone, journaling, walking in nature, or simply taking a deep breath. But it's always there, waiting for you to tune in. You just have to trust that you already have the answers, because no one knows your path better than you do. The more you focus on your inner world, the more confident you become in your direction, and the less you need permission or approval to follow it. Focusing on yourself builds resilience. Life is full of ups and downs, challenges and disappointments, unexpected twists and difficult transitions. There are times things won't go as planned, when people will let you down, when goals will feel out of reach, and when the weight of it all may tempt you to give up. But the ability to keep going, to rise above, to adapt, and to grow stronger in the face of adversity, that's resilience. And it doesn't come from the outside. It's something you develop from within. And it begins when you start focusing on yourself. When you direct your energy inward. When you start nurturing your emotional strength, sharpening your mind, and building your inner foundation. You equip yourself to face life's storms without falling apart. You begin to rely less on external circumstances and more on your own power. You stop looking for someone to rescue you or fix things for you. You realize that no matter what happens around you, you still have control over how you respond. That's what resilience is. A mindset. A muscle that grows stronger every time you face hardship with focus and intention. People who don't take the time to work on themselves often break when pressure hits. They feel lost when plans fail, or when others disappoint them. But when you've spent time focusing on yourself, understanding your emotions, mastering your thoughts, identifying your purpose, you build a core of strength that doesn't waver easily. You become more grounded. Setbacks don't shake you as deeply. Failures become lessons, not labels. Criticism becomes feedback, not defeat. You start to bounce back faster, think clearer, and make decisions from a place of inner power rather than fear or panic. The truth is, life will test you. People will misunderstand you. Plans will fall through. But if you've done the inner work, if you've built a solid relationship with yourself, you'll have the tools to stand firm, to adapt, and to keep moving forward. That kind of resilience doesn't come overnight. It's built day by day, choice by choice, thought by thought. It's built in those quiet moments when you choose reflection over reaction, growth over comfort, and strength over self-pity. Focusing on yourself builds resilience. Resilience is not just about bouncing back from failure. It's about how you carry yourself through life's storms without losing your sense of self. It's about facing discomfort, pain, disappointment, and pressure, and choosing to grow through it instead of giving up. And this inner strength does not come from avoiding challenges or depending on others to hold you together. It comes from the discipline of turning inward, understanding who you are, and choosing to stay grounded no matter what is happening around you. When you focus on yourself, you begin to cultivate the kind of strength that isn't shaken by criticism, rejection, or delay. You stop allowing the world to dictate your emotional state because you've built a core inside that doesn't collapse under pressure. In a world where people constantly search for quick solutions, external validation, or someone else to fix their problems, resilience can only be developed by consistently working on your mindset. It requires being honest with yourself, accepting your weaknesses, and taking responsibility for your healing and growth. You learn to be your own support system, your own motivator, and your own source of encouragement. When life pushes you down, it's this focus on self that allows you to stand back up. Not because someone told you to, but because you know you can. That inner knowing is powerful. It gives you the courage to take risks, to start again, to trust the process even when you can't see the results right away. People who neglect their inner world are often easily shaken by change because they haven't built a strong internal foundation. But when you focus on your own development, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you start to face difficulties with a different mindset. You don't crumble as easily under pressure. You might feel the pain, but you won't let it define you. You begin to see problems as teachers, not punishments. Setbacks become setups. Obstacles turn into opportunities for growth. And this shift in perspective only happens when you've built a deep connection with yourself. Every time you choose self-reflection over blame, patience over frustration, or growth over stagnation, you become more resilient. You're no longer shaken by other people's opinions or sudden changes in your circumstances. You've trained yourself to stand tall because your strength comes from within. Not from how easy life is, but from how much you prepared yourself to rise. No matter what, you attract what you reflect. This simple truth is often overlooked, yet it holds immense power in shaping your life and the people, opportunities, and experiences that come into it. When you focus on yourself, on your mindset, your habits, your self-worth, you begin to change your inner world. And as your inner world transforms, so does your outer world. The energy you emit, the standards you hold, the way you carry yourself, all of it sends a message to the universe about what you believe you deserve. When you radiate confidence, you attract respect. When you embody peace, you draw in calm relationships. When you live with purpose, you begin to attract opportunities that align with that purpose. Most people want better relationships, more success, and deeper fulfillment. A crowd ever will, but they forget that all of these things respond to who you are, not just what you want. You can't attract genuine love if you constantly feel unworthy of it. You won't draw abundance if your mind is trapped in scarcity. You won't experience peace if you are consumed by inner chaos. What you see in your external life is often a mirror of what you carry internally. So if you want something better, you have to become someone better. You have to reflect the qualities, the energy, and the values you wish to receive. Focusing on yourself gives you the space to do that inner work, to raise your standards, to heal your wounds, to break old patterns. And as you begin to evolve, the things that once felt out of reach start to find their way to you naturally. A crowd ever will. People who align with your new level of self-respect will begin to enter your life, while those who don't will quietly fall away. A crowd ever will. Opportunities will show up not because you chased them, but because you've become the kind of person who is ready to receive them. This is not about pretending or performing. It's about becoming. When you focus on becoming more grounded, more aware, more intentional, you shift your entire energy field. And energy doesn't lie. People feel your confidence, your clarity, your authenticity. Life responds not to your words, but to your frequency. That's why inner work is never wasted. It might not bring instant results, but it sets you up for long-term alignment. You no longer chase things that were never meant for you. You simply rise into who you were always meant to be. And in doing so, you attract people and experiences that reflect that version of you. Personal growth requires solitude. In a society that constantly encourages connection, noise, and productivity, solitude is often misunderstood. Many people associate being alone with being lonely, but in reality, solitude is a powerful and necessary space for transformation. It is in those quiet moments, away from distractions, opinions, and obligations, that we truly meet ourselves. When you spend time alone with intention, you begin to hear thoughts you've been avoiding, feel emotions you've been suppressing, and gain insights you couldn't access while surrounded by noise. This inner awareness is the foundation of growth. A growth is not something that just happens to us. It's something we must participate in. And participation starts with deep self-examination, which only becomes possible when you create space for solitude. When you're constantly surrounded by others or overwhelmed by outside stimulation, your energy is scattered. You end up reacting to life rather than intentionally creating it. But when you disconnect from the world, even for a little while, you allow your mind and spirit to realign. You reconnect with your values. You remember your goals. You realize what's draining you and what's fueling you. In solitude, clarity emerges, and with clarity comes direction. Some of the most profound breakthroughs happen in moments of silence. It's when you take a walk alone, journal your thoughts without censorship, sit with your discomfort instead of escaping it. It's in these moments that growth begins. You learn to face yourself. You confront limiting beliefs, old wounds, and hidden desires. And though it may feel uncomfortable at first, this discomfort is sacred. It's the starting point of transformation. You cannot evolve if you never pause long enough to notice what needs changing. Solitude also builds emotional independence. It teaches you that you are enough without constant validation or company. You begin to enjoy your own presence, trust your own voice, and find strength in your own stillness. When you are comfortable being alone, you stop fearing isolation. You stop seeking relationships out of loneliness, and instead begin to attract people who resonate with your growth, not your voids. You stop filling your schedule just to avoid being with yourself, and instead, you choose quality over quantity in every area of your life. In the stillness of solitude, you water the roots of your identity. You nourish your dreams. You begin to grow. Not outwardly at first, but deeply, internally. And this type of growth creates lasting change because it is built on the foundation of self-awareness, not on the temporary opinions or energies of others. You are your most important investment. In a world where people invest in businesses, houses, gadgets, and countless external assets, many forget that the most valuable resource they will ever have is themselves. Your mindset, your health, your knowledge, your emotional stability, your self-awareness. These are the foundations upon which everything else in your life is built. If these internal pillars are weak, no amount of external success will ever feel fulfilling or sustainable. That's why focusing on yourself is not just a lifestyle choice. It's a lifelong commitment to becoming the best version of who you are. Investing in yourself means choosing to grow, even when it's uncomfortable. It means choosing to learn, even when you feel like you already know enough. It means healing your inner wounds, developing your skills, nurturing your physical and mental well-being. Crowd ever will, and continuously evaluating whether your habits and relationships are helping you evolve or keeping you stuck. It's easy to spend money and time on things that provide instant gratification, but real investment, the kind that leads to long-term fulfillment, requires patience, discipline, and courage. It might mean reading when you'd rather scroll, meditating when you feel restless, setting boundaries when you're used to people-pleasing, or walking away from familiar comfort zones in order to grow. When you pour time and energy into developing yourself, you're not only enhancing your present, you're shaping your future. Every book you read, every skill you master, every hour you spend on physical and emotional well-being compounds over time. You become more confident, more competent, and more aligned with your goals. Life begins to flow more smoothly, not because it gets easier, but because you become more equipped to handle it. A crowd ever will. You no longer rely on others to fill your gaps or solve your problems, because you've built a strong foundation within yourself. This type of investment also gives you freedom. When you invest in your own development, you gain the ability to adapt, pivot, and thrive regardless of what happens around you. You're no longer at the mercy of other people's opinions, the economy, or unstable relationships. You are your own source of power. You carry your growth with you wherever you go. That kind of security, the security that comes from knowing you've got yourself, is priceless. People often seek external success to feel valuable. But when you truly invest in yourself, you already know your value. And when you know your value, everything changes. How you speak, how you move, how you live, and what you allow into your life. Focusing on yourself builds real confidence. Not the kind of confidence that depends on how others see you, how many compliments you receive, or how well things are going in your life, but the kind that comes from deep self-trust and inner validation. Real confidence is quiet. It doesn't scream or seek approval. It doesn't need to dominate a room or constantly prove itself. Instead, it lives in your posture, in your decisions, in your ability to stand firm in who you are without needing anyone to clap for you. And this kind of self-assurance only comes when you take the time to truly know yourself, understand your worth, and build your life from the inside out. When you focus on yourself, you begin to learn what you're capable of. You challenge your limits. You become aware of your strengths. And you start working on your weaknesses without shame. Each time you set a goal and achieve it, no matter how small, you build trust in your own abilities. Each time you overcome a fear, stay true to your values, or make a decision based on your inner knowing instead of external pressure, your confidence grows stronger. It's a process that takes time, but it's rooted in actions, not appearances. People often confuse confidence with arrogance or ego. But true confidence is humble. It's grounded in self-awareness, not superiority. It doesn't come from thinking you're better than others. It comes from no longer needing to compare yourself at all. You know your path, you respect your pace, and you no longer measure your value against someone else's journey. Ever will. That's what happens when you're seeking validation from the outside and start focusing on your own growth. The applause becomes unnecessary because you've already given yourself permission to feel proud. Focusing on yourself also helps you develop emotional independence. You no longer rely on other people to make you feel good about who you are. You start to become your own source of encouragement and self-worth. You stop seconding yourself just because someone disagrees with you or doesn't understand you. You learn to stand tall in your truth, even if you're standing alone. That kind of inner strength can't be bought, borrowed, or faked. It has to be earned through consistent self-work, self-reflection, and self-respect. And when you possess that inner confidence, it radiates. People can feel it. It's not in your words. It's in your energy. You walk differently. You speak with more certainty. You attract relationships, opportunities, and experiences that reflect your sense of self. And even when life throws challenges your way, you don't shrink. You rise because you've built a foundation of confidence that doesn't rely on anything outside of you. You can't control others, but you can control yourself. This is one of the most liberating truths you will ever embrace, yet it's also one of the most difficult to accept. So often, we waste our precious energy trying to change people, fix their problems, make them see our worth, or force them to behave the way we believe they should. We hold on to grudges, we get frustrated by others' actions, and we let their words, moods, or opinions dictate how we feel. But no matter how hard we try, we can't control what others think, say, or do. The only true control we have is over our own mindset, reactions, choices, and behavior. When you focus on yourself, you begin to understand that real power isn't about controlling the world around you. It's about mastering the world within you. You stop trying to manage every outcome or manipulate how people perceive you. Instead, you shift your attention to what you can change in your thoughts, your focus, your responses, and your growth. That's where your freedom lies. Because once you stop being emotionally enslaved to the actions of others, you begin to reclaim your peace, your clarity, and your personal power. Trying to control others leads to constant disappointment, anxiety, and conflict. People won't always meet your expectations. They won't always act with kindness, honesty, or understanding. And that's okay, because their behavior doesn't have to determine your state of mind. When you invest in yourself, you develop emotional discipline. You learn to pause before reacting. You learn to walk away from negativity without feeling the need to defend yourself. You learn to hold space for your emotions without letting them control your actions. That's true strength. Not in suppressing how you feel, but in choosing how you express it. Focusing on your own growth also helps you set boundaries. You realize that your peace is your responsibility, and protecting it is a part of self-respect. You don't have to tolerate chaos just because you care about someone. You don't have to stay in unhealthy environments just to prove your loyalty. You start making decisions based on your values, not on pressure or guilt. And in doing so, you stop being a victim of circumstance. You become the author of your own experience. Letting go of the need to control others doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start trusting yourself more. You trust that no matter what someone else does, you will handle it. You will learn, grow, and keep moving forward. That mindset shifts everything. It brings a sense of peace that no one else can give or take away. It allows you to stand firm in your truth, even when everything around you feels uncertain. And it teaches you the most powerful lesson of all along, that your greatest strength lies not in changing the world, but in mastering yourself. Success becomes more intentional when you focus on yourself. Your path to success shifts from being accidental or reactive to being conscious and deliberate. Instead of chasing whatever opportunities happen to come your way, you begin to create goals that are aligned with your deepest values, desires, and purpose. You stop moving just to stay busy or to keep up with others, and you start moving with direction and clarity. You become selective with your time, more thoughtful about your choices, and more committed to your vision. This is when success transforms from a vague dream into a structured, step-by-step journey built on purpose and discipline. So many people spend years running toward goals that were never truly theirs. They chase status, money, or recognition because that's what they've been taught defines success. But when you pause and turn inward, when you begin to understand who you really are and what you genuinely want, you begin to redefine success on your own terms. For some, success might mean financial freedom. For others, it may be peace of mind, meaningful relationships, creative fulfillment, or living in alignment with their truth. Regardless of what it looks like, intentional success feels different. It feels fulfilling, not exhausting. It energizes you rather than draining you. Focusing on yourself also sharpens your ability to plan and prioritize. You learn to identify what truly matters and what doesn't. You become more aware of distractions that pull you off course, whether they're unimportant obligations, toxic influences, or self-sabotaging habits. Instead of reacting to life, you become proactive. You set boundaries, create routines, and make decisions that support your growth. You no longer depend on luck or wait for perfect timing. You realize that the future you want must be built by the choices you make today. This intentional approach also helps you measure success more meaningfully. You begin to track your progress not just by how fast you're moving or how much you're earning, but by how aligned you feel, how much you've grown, a crowd ever will, and how true you've stayed to your purpose. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself because you're not chasing someone else's version of success. You are designing your life based on what resonates with your soul. And that makes every milestone feel deeper, every achievement feel earned, and every lesson feel worthwhile. By focusing on yourself, you stop living by default and start living by design. You don't leave your future up to chance. You become the architect of your reality, constructing your path with intention, clarity, and unwavering focus. And that's when success starts showing up not as a lucky break, but as the natural result of your inner alignment and consistent effort. Focusing inward cultivates emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, the ability to understand, manage, and express your emotions in healthy ways, is one of the most powerful tools you can develop, and it begins with self-awareness. When you focus on yourself, you start paying attention to what you feel, why you feel it, and how your emotions influence your thoughts and behaviors. You no longer react blindly to situations or allow your moods to control your actions. Instead, you learn to pause, reflect, and respond with intention. This level of inner awareness helps you navigate life with more clarity, patience, and maturity. Most people go through life being led by their emotions rather than learning from them. Anger leads to outbursts. Sadness leads to withdrawal. Anxiety leads to avoidance. But when you spend time focusing on yourself, you begin to identify patterns in your emotional responses. You start recognizing your triggers, understanding the roots of your reactions, and separating your present reality from past wounds. This emotional clarity helps you gain control over your internal world, which in turn gives you more control over how you experience the external world. Emotional intelligence also improves your relationships, not because you become better at managing others, but because you become better at managing yourself. When you understand your emotions, you're less likely to project them onto others. You become more empathetic, more compassionate, and more respectful of boundaries. both your own and other people's. You can listen without becoming defensive, speak without attacking, and walk away from unhealthy dynamics without guilt or resentment. Your communication becomes clearer, your connections deeper, and your relationships healthier. Not because you're trying to please everyone, but because you've learned to navigate emotions with honesty and care. Focusing inward also helps you regulate stress and maintain a sense of balance. Life is full of challenges, but emotional intelligence gives you the ability to stay grounded, even in difficult moments. You become better at coping with pressure, handling criticism, and making decisions under emotional strain. You don't let fear or anger dictate your actions. You don't crumble under failure or fly into panic during uncertainty. Instead, you stay anchored in your awareness, using your emotional understanding to move forward with calm and confidence. This level of inner mastery can only be achieved through deliberate self-focus. It requires reflection, honesty, and the willingness to sit with uncomfortable emotions instead of escaping them. But the reward is profound, a deeper relationship with yourself, healthier relationships with others, and a greater ability to handle whatever life brings your way with grace, strength, and emotional clarity. You stop people-pleasing and start self-respecting. For much of life, many people are conditioned to seek approval from others, to say yes when they want to say no, to avoid conflict even when something feels wrong, to put others' comfort above their own truth. People-pleasing becomes a survival strategy, a way to feel accepted, loved, or validated. But over time, it chips away at your authenticity. You begin to lose touch with your real needs, suppress your emotions, and abandon your boundaries, all in an effort to be liked or keep the peace. Focusing on yourself is what breaks this cycle. It brings you back to your center, helping you recognize that your worth isn't dependent on other people's opinions. It's determined by how you treat yourself. When you begin to truly focus on yourself, you realize that saying "I"s to everyone often means saying "no" to yourself. And the more you neglect your own needs, the more resentment builds within you. You may appear kind or agreeable on the surface, but underneath there's frustration, confusion, and burnout. This internal conflict erodes your self-respect. But as you turn inward and become more aware of your own values, feelings, and priorities, you start to shift. You no longer feel the need to stretch yourself thin to gain acceptance. You begin to choose authenticity over approval, truth over comfort, and integrity over performance. Self-respect means honoring your time, your boundaries, and your emotional well-being. It means having the courage to speak up when something doesn't feel right, to walk away from situations that drain you, and to stand firm in your decisions without guilt. It also means no longer shrinking yourself to fit into places that weren't meant for you. As your self-respect grows, so does your ability to be assertive, not aggressive, to be compassionate, but not a doormat. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you, and you no longer compromise your peace for temporary approval. Focusing on yourself teaches you that the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with you. And when that relationship is built on respect, everything else in your life begins to align. You attract people who respect your energy because you respect it first. You stop tolerating mistreatment because you've set new standards for how you allow others to treat you. You start choosing yourself, not out of selfishness, but out of the understanding that your voice matters, your needs matter, and your presence deserves to be honored, especially by you. It's the beginning of personal freedom. When you focus on yourself truly and unapologetically, you begin to unshackle yourself from all the invisible chains that have quietly held you back. Expectations from others, societal pressure, past regrets, fear of judgment, the need for constant validation. These are the mental prisons many people live in without even realizing it. You operate based on what you think you should do, how you should behave, and who you should be in order to be accepted. But the moment you start putting your attention inward, those illusions begin to fall away. You realize that so much of your stress, insecurity, and confusion came from trying to live a life that wasn't fully yours. Focusing on yourself is not just about achieving goals or improving habits. It's about reclaiming your voice, your choices, your time, your energy, your identity. You stop asking for permission to be yourself. You stop apologizing for wanting more, needing space, or thinking differently. You become aware of the roles you were playing just to fit in. A crowd ever will, the mask you were wearing to be liked, and the weight you were carrying just to feel enough. And when you shed all of that, you don't just feel lighter. You feel liberated. That is what personal freedom truly is, living in alignment with your own values, walking your own path, and honoring your own pace without needing to explain it to anyone. This kind of freedom allows you to say no without guilt, to dream without limits, and to create without fear of failure. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. You begin to choose your relationships more wisely, not out of loneliness, but out of alignment. You pursue goals not for praise, but for purpose. You make decisions not to avoid judgment, but to honor your truth. And perhaps most importantly, you realize that your happiness is no longer dependent on circumstances, people, or outcomes. It comes from within, from that deep, grounded space of knowing who you are and being at peace with it. When you reach this point, everything changes. The noise of the world gets quieter. The pressure fades. The constant urge to prove yourself dissolves. You begin to move through life with a sense of calm confidence, because you're finally living in a way that feels real, meaningful, and free. And that kind of freedom is not something anyone can give you. It's something you grant yourself when you finally decide to stop living for others and start living for you. So, as we wrap up this journey of reflection and self-discovery, remember this: focusing on yourself is not a rejection of the world. It is a powerful step toward embracing your true place in it. It is not about isolating, but about aligning. It's about giving yourself the time, space, and grace to grow into who you were always meant to be. Without apology, without comparison, and without compromise. When you begin to honor your own path, everything else starts to fall into place. You show up stronger, clearer, more confident, and more fulfilled. Not because life became easier, but because you became more in tune with yourself. So give yourself that focus. Give yourself that care. Because you are your greatest responsibility, your greatest project, and your greatest power. The world doesn't need a perfect version of someone else. It needs the real, empowered version of you.